This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to Penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. Thank you, Danny, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So today, Danny, we are going to start with a game. I like to make up new games every now and then, so you're getting a new one. This one I like to call, if you hate it, don't tell me, because it's my idea and I don't want to be upset. I'm just kidding. You can tell me. But it is called Speedy Shark Tank. So you've been involved with a bunch of different companies or a bunch of different products, and I would love your opinion on whether you would invest in these products that I've created out of thin air. Does that sound fun?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I'll tell you the name of it, and then I will tell you what it is. I would not, I'm just letting you know in advance that I maybe wouldn't use some of these. So I'm not creating them because I think they should exist. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not crazy. So, okay. First one is called Sock Sync. It's socks that match themselves. They have tiny little microscopic magnets in them that make them attract to each other, even through wash, so that they're always together and you never have to set your socks together.
How do they feel? Do they feel nice?
They feel like socks. They're regular socks. They're good socks. They're just they just got a little magnet. You don't know what the magnet. They're all like heavy.
Okay. Or they feel like what? Like a cotton poly blend or what?
Yeah, like a normal sock.
Okay.
Like a regular sock, but with a magnet. No,
Are there any like wires coming out of these socks that are gonna get in the way? No?
nothing weird. Just a sock with a tiny. I love the questions though. This is important.
Wait, so how do you power the socks?
There's no power. It's just a magnet. It's a tiny magnet.
And they change colors. You said
No.
Wait, what do the magnets do?
The magnets, the ones that, they attract each other. Magnets.
Oh, they attract the socks together?
Yeah. Little magnets.
Oh, it's so they don't get lost. Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, because you can lose your socks in the washer all the time.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would at least buy one pair.
You would buy one pair, but would you invest in my company of magnet socks?
I think maybe I'll get 2 pairs.
That is not investing. I would say that is a very small investment in my company. A 0.0001% stake in my company.
Yeah, exactly. Do I get equity for buying 3 pairs of socks?
If you were one of the first buyers, maybe I'll give you a cut. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would. I mean, what are you asking for? What?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know how much this company is worth. If it is worth anything. So
Is this technology that enables you to embed magnets in fabric? Is this a patent?
Maybe that's it. Maybe yeah. If it's the ingenuity of it is the actual investment, maybe that's what I should be selling instead. Okay. Next product we got. It's called Scent Fence. Okay, so this is a necklace that you wear that when people come within 2 feet of you, it emits a scent that is pleasant, so that if you're worried about what you smell like or your breath or something like that, you have a pleasant smell.
Is this it's like a battery powered type thing, or is it just
I guess it would have to.
You still working on the technology?
Yeah, like I sorry that I didn't expect so many questions.
I watched a
So
lot of
weird.
Sharks. Like, okay.
No, I love Shark Tank. I wasn't expecting. This is quick Shark Tank, speedy
Yeah,
Shark
I
Tank.
love it. No, I'm really
No
into it.
questions.
So I love it. I would definitely invest in that.
I would
'Cause
get it too. I'm always worried that I smell, even if I don't. I'm still worried about it.
Well, because I recently got into trying banana fragrances, and the problem with those is when the actual banana smell, it lasts like 30 minutes or less. So when you first spray it, it smells like fresh banana bread or like bananas or like the banana candy, depending on which one you're going with.
Interesting.
But it doesn't stick around. So it'd be cool to take that sort of diffuser approach, but on your body. So then whatever notes actually last instead of fading. So I would definitely invest in that.
I would like it if it was a smaller necklace. I'm thinking of like a gigantic necklace, like these like air. That would probably not be the
Oh,
ideal.
yeah. I was thinking it would look like jewelry.
That's what I was thinking. Well, there's ugly jewelry that is very gaudy, so that could also be
You're selling this really well.
yeah, no, just I was just thinking logistically, maybe I didn't fully pledge all these ideas. Thinking of like the vision's coming to me. I wouldn't be great on Shark Tank, that's for sure. I don't my visions are not fully out there. Well, anyway, I think we spent a good amount of time on this game. I had a couple others, but I'll send them via email afterwards. You can invest in give me a 5% stake in my company.
Perfect.
But thank you so much for participating in that and entertaining me. I will think more about my ideas so that I can eventually pitch my sock sink on Shark Tank. Thank you so much. Well, Danny, thank you again so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I was really excited to have you on today because a lot of times I'm only talking to someone that has I like to call them kind of lifetimers, like people that have been in their position for a really long time. And that's great, but you have a lot of different experience in different areas, and that is very cool. So, first, I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself. So, like, your professional journey, what led you to this point, and kind of like what you're doing today and what you're looking for in the future.
Thanks, Shannon. So, yeah, most of my career consistently has been either something like graphic design or creative industry work or creative director work. Um, and part of that is because when I was about, when the iPhone came out, I was really obsessed with those app icons. Initially when it launched, there wasn't an app store. It was just like whatever it was, phone, text, notes, and a few other things. But this idea of apps kind of blew my mind. And so I was very involved. I was pretty young, but involved in conversations in the app space. So I was also involved with the jailbreak scene, like creating icons that I don't know if you ever saw that, but people would customize their phone and change the icons. So I would design icons and things like that, and also design different apps. And a lot of my I was acquaintances online through IRC chat rooms and Twitter and places like that with a lot of those people who were making changes in the iPhone scene. So people like I think it was like the If This Then That founder, people like George Hotz, Jay Freeman, people like that. I didn't know how big of a deal this was at the time. I just these were like my online sort of friends that I was chatting with about, oh, this is cool. Oh, I like this thing that Apple just announced, or, how can we, just messing around with the software and the devices itself. That just really fascinated me. And actually at that time, I barely thought of that as a field. I just had enjoyed. I started using this software called GIMP, which is like a free Photoshop.
Mhm.
And it's really a little bit more difficult to use because with open source software, it's kind of like a duct tape together of tools. But I eventually moved to Adobe. But I was just obsessed with creating things. Sometimes it would be kind of art, but from the beginning, my focus was more, I liked the design of it. Also the human psychology part, that book, The Design of Everyday Things I read pretty early on, which basically is focused more on the human psychology of design and less on the artistic side of it. And that was more my focus, which I think put me at an advantage in the industry once I did start getting design gigs and working for agencies, because a lot of designers start as basically artists. They do art, they might do oils and then digital art too. And then they say, oh, hey, I can make a career out of this. I want to be a graphic designer. Now I'm an artist as well, but I think the unfortunate downside of the path of artist to graphic designer is that you end up making a lot of commercial work that is not going to really be art, so to speak. You might make aesthetic choices, but the end goal is not to be fine art. So I had the advantage of being interested in the communication side and human psychology side of design from the beginning. So I more reflect back on that. At the time, I don't think I realized that, but I had tons of people telling me, oh, the graphic designers, everyone is a graphic designer and nobody's doing well. So like, don't even bother getting into that. And I just kind of knew that I liked it. So fortunately I didn't listen to the haters and just pursued it. Yeah. And then I studied for a year at Tennessee Tech, programming, dropped out after a year because I just realized that like a bachelor's program wasn't, taking all those different courses to support the bachelor's degree instead of like focusing on what I liked building. I just realized, okay, this is taking an awful lot of my time. My favorite part to this day is, it was like my intro to CS class, which was, building things on one of those little boards. I forgot which one it was, but basically like an Arduino. Because it was just fun. And then most of my classes were just like listening to lectures, having to study a ton, and not really feeling like I was already building stuff before I went to college on my own since I was a young teenager. So I just kind of didn't see the point. And then I was just doing contract work. I ended up in Alaska, just I guess because I got bored of Tennessee. And that's where after a year of hopping around from like everything from deep sea fishing to cooking in a restaurant to just lots of odd jobs and then some design contracts on the side, I worked at a newspaper and then an agency. And so my sort of employed design career started in Alaska, just like the idea of working at an in-house position or an agency. That's where that started, and that was a great experience. And yeah, I didn't expect that at all. I didn't expect to go off to Alaska and my design career to take off. So, yeah. And then, after getting a gig as a designer and then art director, and starting to like, as an art director in my first agency, I sort of trained some interns. That art director's kind of like a fancy word for graphic designer in a lot of cases, but it often leads into some other responsibilities like, training and managing more junior members, depending on the size of the org. And then I moved to New York, and New York is where I started getting more experience at agencies. That like one of them was Loyal Casper, which works with TV networks. So that was like a shorter term contract. And while I was there, I did the Peacock branding, like the logo for Peacock.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was interesting because I think the bigger the brand heritage, the more it becomes about what the story you're telling, and having, a minimalistic, any logo is going to be minimalistic if it's good in those cases, but being able to communicate that heritage. So that was interesting to just dig deep into the heritage of NBC and Universal independently. And then how can we communicate that brand heritage within, a mark. So that was fun. And then did some CGI work there as well for like TV packages, when they do like introducing this show or whatever, that kind of stuff. So that was fun. And then ended up doing a lot more work at most of my experience in New York was with VM Group, which is we do work for like beauty brands, luxury brands, things like that. So everything from branding to campaigns to the copywriting, basically from the ground up, what brand pillars and brand identity, what's everything that defines that brand or helps it define its structure. So sometimes there's a brand that might have been bought out and they have some brand heritage, but they need to be brought into like the present day with like a full approach to market in the creative sense and telling their story really well. Because sometimes their story is a really good one, but maybe it's not conveyed to the consumer in a great way yet. And so doing a lot of that 360 work. And then along the way, there was, I dabbled a little bit with the Bitcoin, like education business with my brother for a short period of time. We actually barely worked on that. That was like a little project. And then later I did Metavore, which was the 5 Senses subscription box. So it was actually, there was I created Metavore. It was something in the box for each of the 5 senses. So it was kind of fun. It was like a luxury subscription box. And that started growing, but I realized I didn't want to necessarily scale it. I wasn't super excited by the end of it. I was like, okay, this is not creating something every time. It's curating something, but
Mhm.
I've always loved building things. So that's what transitioned me into Ville.Social, where now and I launched that, I think it was about 5 months ago in Colorado where I am now. Because, as an event platform, a localized audience is more what it's about, which is really
Yeah.
cool because it actually, I love, I'm really into dance, Latin dance, which is like bachata, salsa, stuff like that. Sometimes swing dance and things like that too. And then also doing outdoorsy things with other people and also just having a sense of community. Like, in the past, I've thrown a lot of parties, but for me, the best parties aren't the ones where it was like a packed house with like wall to wall, like, okay, there's a lot of people, this is loud. I'm definitely getting letters from the landlord tomorrow, but more the ones where it's like the right people in the right room. Well, the room doesn't matter as much. The right people together in a room where they just have this natural connection. I think that's the key to community. Even just the small scale of hosting a party. And that's part of why I'm so excited about Ville, because it basically takes all the technology that we've been served to, have us swiping endlessly on, video content, just like in bed or, waiting for our train or whatever. Or even sometimes just killing time instead of talking to a real person by like swiping through endless content. It's very addictive, right? But it is a very effective way of serving content. So what Ville does is we have 5-second clips that loop. So essentially it's using that same idea of, super immersive content, but it's showing you events instead. So it's like events near you, and then you can tap, it adds it to your iPhone or Android device's calendar instantly. So then of course, and part of why that's exciting is because a lot of platforms, they're like, okay, here's how you sign up for these push notifications, here's how you plug into, your Google Calendar, whatever. But the benefit of just tapping it as it's your calendar is now immediately, no matter what your device is, when you open your maps and you're like a few minutes away from that event, it'll suggest, do you want to go to that event? So it plugs into existing technologies. It doesn't just ignore the technologies we already have and just channels those toward in-person connection. And it also lends itself really well to repeat events. Like we have a lot of like restaurants and dance studios and like yoga studios and things like that post their events that happen the same time every week.
Mhm.
And so you'll actually see, this is every Wednesday. And then when you add it to your calendar, it adds those occurrences to your calendar every Wednesday. So it kind of not forces you, but bugs you. This is in your calendar now. So if you miss the next time, it'll be there again. And this is also scientifically proven to be how we build rapport with strangers, is seeing them at the same place again and again. And then eventually we go, oh, I recognize this person and I kind of trust them. I'm not sure why. And it's because of that like familiarity of just being in their presence. And we've lost that because in a lot of senses, we've lost that third space. In the past, it might've been your barber. especially with smaller towns that might have only had one barber. It might have been church for some. There's definitely people who still go to church, but that's one of those spaces that like, like it would be like barber, church, what else? Sometimes market, maybe if it's a smaller market and you're seeing the same people. But we have so many choices now. Um, Even people who go to third spaces often find themselves switching it up and um, being more addicted to all these choices that are in front of them, whether it's, oh, I can choose to be at home and just scroll through content and not even leave my house, or I can go to this barber or go to that barber, or hey, I'm guilty of this, like with coffee shops. Um, I want to try the new coffee. Like I love
Yeah.
that cold brew, and sometimes the best coffee shop for vibe and for hanging out, I don't love their cold brew. And so then I'm tempted to go find and chase like a new taste. But I think it was there's a famous quote that I think was Epicurus, where the term like Epicurean comes from, that said like find someone to eat with before finding something to eat. So it's essentially terrible translation or whatever, but
No, but I get it.
is that find that it's more important who you're eating with, right? It's that idea of breaking bread is not about bread. It's it's about the people you break bread with. So I think this addiction to choice has people often trying to find a new choice to make or choosing the new choice instead of showing up somewhere regularly, and that's a big reason why we have so much isolation and chronic loneliness in Western culture. I mean, not just Western culture; it's a problem all over.
Yeah,
But
but it's a big problem here.
yeah,
I definitely understand too, because I think that going to a place that is familiar to me is something that is comforting. Like seeing the same people in those spaces or whatever, regardless of whether I even talk to them every time or whatever it may be, feels just. I do understand that level of trust that you're kind of talking about, because it is something that is truly real. Like you see someone multiple times in the same place, even like the workers there or whatever it may be. It just feels like you do have this social connection, maybe if you're, whether you're actively interacting with them constantly or not. And like that's how you kind of like make friendships. Like I've made a bunch of friends from just like going into a business a lot and like interacting. Most of the time they work there because I've been in the service industry for a bunch of my life. But um it's really, that camaraderie is something like when there's a familiarity between like two people or multiple people, it is something that um like fosters that social connection.
right.
Whereas like it's not often where you're gonna have like a nice interaction on the street or like one time with someone and continue to actually, um see them again.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things with Ville that I wanted to solve is that we know that, and in fact, people scrolling content all the time know these things. Like you talk about a lot of these, and they say, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing a video on this facts that's how we connect as humans." But what did they do next? Then they watched like lava melting, some molten metal melting some eggs or something, and then
Forgot
the
about that
baby
thing.
dancing in a grocery store, and then like the latest like TikTok dance or whatever. And a lot of that's super highly like I was a sucker always for YouTube videos, podcasts, and educational content where I felt like I was challenging myself to learn something new. And then for a long time, I thought, okay, I'm like bettering myself because I'm learning all these things. Well, in some ways, yes, but I think the problem becomes when that replaces. There was a graph I saw one time that was like where people met their spouse, and I think it was like kind of the places I was mentioning earlier. It was like back before the internet was like church, grocery store, um, you know, the post office or whatever, places that people would frequent. And then and then you'd see on the timeline when it was growing, it was like when the internet came out, it started to go like internet, internet, internet until it became completely internet and everything else was like super thin. And I don't think that our, problem as a society is just related to dating, but I think that's just a great example of, and you'll hear people complain about this all the time, They're like, oh, hey, like I'm sick of swiping left and right on like an app, or even they have more wholesome ones that are all about deleting the app and, having prompts that are make it more interesting, or
Yeah,
make
but
like kind of blurring the line between community and friends and things like that. But in the end, everyone's just sick of it all because it doesn't foster. So the great thing about Phil is that actually I'm always thinking about this, like that people are going to meet like people and potentially date them too. They could be a friend or they could date them, but that's not like what the app is focused around.
Mhm.
It's like just, this is Bill right here. And it's just like TikTok or Instagram, except any of those platforms, except, you're looking at events. And so you're seeing like immersive content, whether it's
That's awesome.
dancing.
And even though like people are addicted to that, scrolling, but at the same time they're getting value out of it in the way that like they can physically go. Is this
Yeah.
something?
And also then you can expand it and like see more. So you see
That's
other
awesome.
things. And then this plus button right here is what adds to your calendar. And so now it's adding it to my device's calendar. And now it'll be synced into all my other like platforms and apps. And this is a video I just took myself at a place I dance a lot at. A lot of the dance studios will do the same. There's a lot of dance right now. That's I think there's some fruit with some dancing in the background. This is one of my friends doing the mile long table with it's called longer tables here in Colorado. He's gonna do a table that's a mile long. So right now they're like looking for additional funding, but it's gonna be amazing. It's like a nonprofit.
Mhm.
And then there's even a map view, so you can see, what's going on. And then you can also mark like in filtering what's going on today, and that you can see all these things near me are happening. So I can just like tap one of those. So I'm doing backwards. And then
Is
that's
this something that sorry, is this something that you're thinking of expanding? I feel like this would be something that's like very wonderful to have in a lot of spaces.
Mhm. Yeah, we already have a lot of events in Chicago. And the beautiful thing about this is it's also like social media, that it's very accessible to post. So there's like this little
Yeah.
screen here where you post your 5-second clip. And if you have a longer one, it lets you trim it easily to 5 seconds. And yeah, I mean, Chicago is probably the next one, and then other cities as well. The Where I wanted to get with it was, oh, and also another thing is just paying attention to how people connect in person. So this is an English pub that posted their trivia night that's like
Mhm.
a few blocks from me. And so if you share this in person, not only does it give the typical options of like copy link, share event, and share event with other users on Bill, but it has the QR code that you might see at like a restaurant
Yeah.
for their menu, for example, that this immediately will show, will have that pull up on your phone in your browser.
Mhm.
So it's not requiring you to use this platform to actually share the event with someone. If they want to add it to their device's calendar, they need to install it. But um, it's everything about this is geared toward how do people connect in person. And like if I'm talking to a stranger at a thing I just went to, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about going to this other event. They're like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, yeah, these same people are hosting this other thing next week. Yes, for me, it's not that weird to like get their number or whatever. But for a lot of people, they're just kind of like not at that level yet with people. Like if they just
Yeah.
met the person, they might be like, oh yeah, I'd love to see you at the other thing. But maybe they're not ready to swap contact info. Like they don't know if they're fully trusting of that person who's still a stranger.
My
So
biggest fear is that people think that I want to date them when they don't. Like I'm like if I ask for their number, they think I don't want to be their friend immediately. And I'm like, I don't know how to make it
yeah,
without being like, I just want to be your friend. Can I have your number? Which is like the most awkward thing to do ever.
right.
you, you just
Yeah.
establish that through that kind of like friendship that you have with them without asking for that. And then one day you can actually ask.
I'm glad you pointed that out because a lot of what I do is also listen to my sisters and like what the way they interact with. Well, and to be honest, like through dancing, like a lot of my friends are women, and one of the things they talk about a lot is that's immediately without being just as soon as they enter a space, like that's one of their biggest concerns is like I'm meeting people, and if I don't feel at that level with them, where like, and that's the thing too is like it's like if you go out dancing, for example, some people have a certain expectation. Like they think that some things are a certain way and it might not be. And so being uncertain of whether you want to give them your contact info. Like that's what part of why I put a QR code so that they can just scan and see the event. And then they're like, oh, maybe I'll see this person at that event. But not needing to like make that fairly intimate digital connection,
Yeah.
swapping phone numbers or whatever contact method. And then also my sister used to do a fake wedding ring for a while.
I love that.
Which I
That's
think that
actually
in the South really well because that's where she was at the time. There's some parts of the country that it's like kind of up in the air as if that would be quite as effective, but definitely in the
okay.
South. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely more morally gray states that maybe wouldn't care at all. But,
Now
but
she has
yeah,
a real wedding ring. But yeah, I'm pretty sure when they met, she wasn't wearing the fake one. But
but, but no, I think it's really great that you're thinking about all these factors, because it is like interacting socially. I think especially since COVID and since the digital age before that, has gotten so difficult for even like the average socially adjusted person. I think that it's just something that the more we interact with technology and less with people, the harder it gets to interact with people. So having technology that is fostering being better at being social is something that's really wonderful because there's so many. I do see this boom of like social events and like restaurants and different things and like events at them being advertised on social media more, but at the same time I don't know how effective that is in making people actually go to them because I agree with the phenomenon that you mentioned earlier in the idea that oh, they're on Instagram, so they're like they have 5 different things that completely wildly different things that they see on their reels or whatever it may
yeah.
be right afterwards that don't make them think about that event anymore. They're like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll save that." And then they never look in their saves.
Well, if you
Um,
look at the story of how Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, what's the one thing that he mentions the most in early interviews? And I think he might have mentioned it in that movie, The Social Network too, like his character. But a common trend was, oh, what do people often want to know about someone? Oh, they want to know, are they dating someone? What school do they go to? Like, you know what, how people used to do that? They used to go up and ask them.
ask them. Used to
And, so essentially at the root of modern, what this I think called social media was a was trying to solve a problem with instead of changing human behavior culturally, saying just, okay, we'll adapt to that, anxiety of not wanting to ask. Because I grew up like I was a nerd. I was really into building things. Like I wasn't very social. I was probably less on the socially anxious side and more on the like, I don't care, like whatever. It was less like it was more just like, oh, I'm not interested in going to that function because I'm like busy like coding something. Uh, and so I understand like the desire to like want to come up with these technological solutions for things that humans already solved.
Mhm.
But that's like the heart of social media was like actually giving us fewer reasons to go talk to someone. And
Yeah.
so now I'm not surprised at all when I go to Facebook and the event platform is disappointing. And someone posts an event and they're like, it's great because I can send it to my Facebook friends. Not to mention most of that now is like starting to age out. Like
Yeah.
most Gen Z that I meet in Colorado, at least, like they've deleted their Facebook and they're not really interested in it. And they might use their Meta account for Instagram, but even then, a lot of them aren't using Instagram. A lot of them they have like TikTok, Snapchat, and then nothing else, or they're very anti social media, which I find really interesting. Is like a movement that I find happening with a certain segment of Gen Z, which is
Very
really
nice.
cool. But yeah, these platforms they don't want you to go to the event. Why would they? They don't make money when you're at the event. They make money when you're on their platform, like swiping content endlessly and getting ads. Like this is, they don't want you to actually go to that event that was shared with you. They want to use that as another interaction that keeps you on the platform. So there's a reason why like event hosts and event attendees like are continually disappointed by some of these event solutions because they're not actually built to like over time become this like really robust tool to help people connect. They're just there to tell you, oh yeah, sure, yeah, we do events too. Yeah, we have that.
Yeah.
Bring you back into that, funnel of like endless, swiping. So
Yeah, and I think that when events do become like more relevant on a platform. It's like a viral thing, whereas an event that's local that maybe only a certain amount of people will come to is something that I think maybe most people prefer. And that's very difficult to find on a normal social media platform because you're usually seeing something that has millions of views. And maybe you don't want to go to that
No.
because it's intimidating and that's like way too many people to handle. And how are you going to make friends that way?
And when I found out the people that use these platforms to post their events are often businesses. And I realized that these event platforms that were gaining traction always came back to serving the businesses. Well, of course, that's for money reasons, right? You make more money from businesses as a user in general, because they can justify, 500, 5,000, 50,000, where an individual might have paid $5, right? So in that case, like they become B2B tools. All the event platforms are now essentially B2B tools that serve events to users. But so Bill, I wanted to say, okay, how can I make this like social media in that it's accessible to everyone and everyone can post events once they verify their email, and browse events easily, but it's not just saying who's our like highest bidder. So even
Yes.
from the beginning, I was making sure that the compression algorithm for the video, the way that the videos are posted and hosted, the ways that even the profile pics are posted and hosted is very optimized so that there's not a huge need to get a lot of investors right away. So right away when when I launched it, I had investors coming to me. I mean, I almost said Middle Tennessee where I grew up. In Colorado, there's a lot of people like with money that like retired and they're kind of like enjoying nature. And this is part of why you see like a lot of startups come out of Boulder. Um, there's people with money that are looking for something exciting to like invest in. And so I've had people come to me very near the beginning, like, "Oh yeah, I want to get in." And I'm like, "Well, the funny thing is, I don't really need investors at all right now. Like, there's gonna
Yeah.
be where maybe that happens, but this is very highly optimized for like localized audiences. Has really good compression where most of the videos are. Another thing is like right now, like the videos are great. They show you exactly what you're gonna see, but like right now, they are not HD videos. Like they are just like a really great immersive video because half the time I'm like in some parking lot, like in the mountains. What's that event details again? And I have like barely any reception. Like, so if 600 kilobyte video in that case is much better than like a, 10 megabyte video, which is like more typical for social media, for example. And so even just real world use of where you're out in the world
Mm.
instead of at home with the fastest connection you could buy. I mean, even the cheap connections now are really fast at home, but then when you're using cell reception, it's quite unpleasant sometimes to browse content. Like
Mhm.
I wanted real world applications. So this is something that like it's actually not very expensive to have things highly compressed and be very like localized. Of course, as it expands to more cities, like I've had people use it in like Chicago, Tennessee, Puerto Rico, California. There's not the biggest audience is I think it's over now like 5,300 in over 5,300 in Colorado.
Mhm.
Cool, because now I'm seeing that community post their own events all the time. They see how easy it is. I had people who said, "Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to figure out." And then they're like, "Can you show me how?" And I was like, "How about this? Just you try, usually post something, and then let me know if you have any questions." And sure enough, you
It's
got
easy.
everyone from like, 18 to like 75, like posting things on there and realizing it's really easy to post hosted events. Part of it is because it just makes you enter the necessary information. It says like, "Oh, what time is it?" Okay, easily select that. How much does it cost? It's free. Okay, put $0. It doesn't actually let any hosts put free when it's not free. It requires you to put $0. As attendees, one of their biggest complaints about events is they don't know how much it costs. They see a flyer or some sort of event thing and they're like, okay, I got the general gist. I can probably show up there and go to it, but I'm not really sure what time it ends, how much it costs. The funniest thing to me is that often things don't show an ends time. But some of the greatest people I've met in my life don't have the types of schedules that allow them to show up on the dot to every event that they want to be at. Half the time they're showing up an hour late, 2 hours late, 3 hours late. So if they look at that event and they can't tell if it's still going on, 3 hours later, then they're probably just not going.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they're texting their friend if they don't get a response back. They're like, I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
So even showing end times, there's just things that I've learned from like hosting and being an attendee at things, whether it's informal or business oriented or whatever, or hosted by a business rather. No matter what, these are details that are often left out. And just looking at how real people interact with events, I began realizing some huge differences between what the platforms are actually doing and what works well for real people trying to connect to community and find events.
I think that's beautiful. I'm happy that someone is doing something like this because I do think that the loneliness that is affecting all generations, I think at this point, is something that's really concerning to me. And it is really sad to see with technological advancements that maybe it's getting worse when I think technology can be used to benefit people in so many ways. And sometimes people just aren't thinking of those things as opposed to like monetary value of what can this do for me rather than what can this do for people. So I think this is an example of something that is really great for people. So I really appreciate you sharing all of this because one, I'm going to check it out even though it's not probably used much in my area. I hope that eventually it is because I think that would be really cool. I live in Philadelphia, so there's a lot of things going on all the time, but I have no way of knowing about them. I just find out about them usually last minute. So it's
Sure, well launched there eventually. In the short term, you can actually do private events. So like, let's say you were throwing like a little like dinner party or book club. You could create
nice.
house events and just check the private with share link only. And it still works great to share like events with people, even when there's not an established Ville community in that city, because that link still shows up in their browser, shows them either the quick clip and like get directions to one tap and adds their calendar and everything. So it also works well like when you don't have a large Ville audience in that city. But we're definitely going to come to Philly, eventually. But
I would love that. So let me know for sure. Stay in touch so that I can check it out because I do think that is really wonderful. And yeah, Facebook is not the greatest place for events anymore. So I appreciate it. But thank you so much for telling me all about this and telling your audience all about this. I think this is really cool. It's awesome to be able to hear about your experience in this. And I hope that it's also helpful for other people. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching as well. Don't forget to listen to other episodes to get to learn like I get to every time. And thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been amazing. Thanks.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.